Hey, we're saints. Welcome to our Crucifixional Lifestream. Father Chris here. Glad to have you beautiful people with us on this glorious Monday. Greg and I were talking with a new friend of ours. There is a lovely lady named Sophia Ortiz, and she is in charge of American Airlines at the hub in Phoenix, Arizona, where we live. So she runs all of American Airlines. And we were visiting with her and just having a conversation. And as a Christian woman, the conversation went down the path that we always go, talking about the Lord and the cross. And she said to me, I feel like an outcast. And I thought, oh my gosh, she's totally right. To be a Christian, especially in this day and age, means that we might often feel like outcasts, right? Like you probably have felt in your own life a little bit of fear about the things that we believe. And maybe even twinges of anger because other people assault our beliefs and call us names. And it's become like almost cliche to say that if you're a Christian and you think this, you're wrong. And that leads sometimes to, or maybe a lot of times, to isolation, to loneliness, because am I the only one that thinks like this? And where are other people who think the way I think? And as I go out and engage the world in my workplace or my school or wherever I may be, maybe even sometimes in our own churches, I feel alone for having these traditional Christian beliefs. And I then begin to doubt them and think, well, geez, can I be right and the whole world be wrong? I mean, can 20 and 30 people tell me you shouldn't think these things and all this, and then all of a sudden, like, I'm right and you're wrong, and like doubt creeps in. I don't know if you've ever had any of that, experienced that yourself, but really being a Christian, especially in today's day and age, is to feel like an outcast, right? Like we have been cast outside the norm of, to say, countercultural. How about that? Greg used that word. It's to be a Christian is to be countercultural because we're like against the grain of where society's going. I want to give you a few words of encouragement, warrior saints, today. Really, first and foremost, thank God. I want you to feel outcast. I don't want you to feel like everybody else in the world and to match all the chaos that they're peddling, the garbage that they're spewing, right? Like the world's message, clearly, the world has given us a message, given us a way, and it hasn't worked, right? I mean, like the world started with chaos, and that whole thing only added to the chaos, right? And made things more chaotic. So that all people, Christians or not, in their lives feel this, I use the word dissonance a lot, this chaos that's going on out there. The world's way didn't work. We are outcasts in that culture, in that society, right? We're like, because we're different. And thank God, you're supposed to be. I don't want to be like everybody else. I don't want to be normal. I'm not trying to be normal. I'm trying to be great. I'm trying to be a warrior saint. Right? I don't want to be like everyone else. And in order to do that, sometimes I may feel like an outcast. The good news is this. It ain't the first time. It probably won't be the last time, right? Paul himself, St. Paul, after Christ's crucifixion and resurrection, and once St. Paul converted to the Christian faith and began teaching the gospel, he found himself an outcast, perhaps much like you and I feel today. He was teaching a message about a Jesus who died on a cross and was raised on the third day by the glory of the Father. And people, some of his pagan Christians and some of his Jewish brothers and sisters, were all attacking him, saying that he was crazy. They were saying that he was weak and foolish, right? Like that his mind was not sharp, like that he just didn't get it. And he probably had doubt and fear and anger and probably felt lonely very often. In 1 Corinthians chapter 1, however, he gives us an insight that, look, what you in the world may think is foolishness or, a scandal, that it is indeed God's power. And what is seemingly right is flipped upside down by the power of this gospel. Listen to what he says in 1 Corinthians chapter 1. Verses 26 and following, we hear, "For consider your call, brethren. Not many of you were wise according to worldly standards. Not many were powerful. Not many were of noble birth. But God chose what is foolish in the world to shame the wise. God chose what is weak in the world to shame the strong. God chose what is low and despised in the world, even things that are not, to bring to nothing things that are, so that no human being might boast in the presence of God." What's going on there? What's he trying to say? He's telling us, look, the gospel of the cross. So this is chapter 1, verse 26 and following. If you read just a few verses ahead before that, you'll see what he's talking about. The gospel of the cross is to the world silliness. In fact, he uses the word moria, which is folly or foolishness. He says that the Jews even look at it as a scandal or a stumbling block. This is like in their mindsets, craziness. It's chaos. It doesn't make any sense. And they were mocked. And Christians, as you know, in the early centuries, were put to death for that faith. And yet, what is seemingly weak to those in the world, what is seemingly nothing in the world, what is seeming foolishness, that's the actual power of God to overcome the chaos. That's God's power to triumph over all of the silliness and chaoses in the world. It mattered for them then, and it matters for you and I now. What may appear to be weak or foolish or silly in your life, I want you to take courage. You're not alone. We're going to talk about that in a couple of days this week. You're not alone. And also, you're on the right path. You see, God's power, though it may be embraced by some who are labeled as outcasts, it is the power to overcome. And God has shown in his Son, Jesus Christ, on the cross, what looked like failure was actually victory. What looked like death was actually a doorway into life. Do you see it? God took the world's way and flipped it upside down to make it happen. See it? So if you feel like an outcast, if you feel alone, I promise you, you're not. Be with us. Join us. Visit warriorsaints.org. Here's why. Look, in this world, in the chaos that you and I must be feeling, I know I'm feeling it. I'm going to leave aside all silliness now. I feel it. I know you've got to be feeling it too. That anger, that fear, that frustration, that isolation, the self-doubt, the doubt of your faith. You're not alone in that kind of stuff. Somewhere in your heart and your mind and your gut, you know it to be true, but you just can't find your way to grasp it so that I can stand firm in my faith, stand firm in what I believe, stand firm in those beautiful traditional Christian values, and not get lost in the chaos of the world, and share them with other people in the world, right? Sometimes that's hard and confusing to do it. We put together the way of the warrior saint to help us so that as we may feel like outcasts, we realize we're not alone, and that sometimes being an outcast from the chaos is actually a good thing. Visit warriorsaints.org and subscribe to the Way of the Warrior Saint. Love you, beautiful people. We'll be back tomorrow to talk a little bit about fear. Until then, keep walking on the way of the Warrior Saint.